I caught my husband on a steamy video call with his mistress. She's a pathetic slob, but it's convenient for me to stay with her, he told her, smirking. I just smiled. He had no idea that my revenge for every humiliation he'd dealt me was already underway. The day Emily discovered the affair, she quietly closed the front door, balancing the grocery bags she'd bought to surprise Mark with a special dinner. But something in the air made her skin prickle. From the hall near his upstairs study, she heard his voice, and another, softer one. Laughter, flirty giggles. They weren't even trying to hide. She climbed the stairs slowly, each step pounding in her ears. From the dim hallway, she saw the study door slightly ajar. Mark sat at his desk, excitement lighting his face in a way Emily hadn't seen in years. On the screen, a young woman twirled her hair and laughed at something he said. Honey, today's our anniversary, the woman cooed. Where are we going? Mark leaned back, chuckling. Of course, Jessica. You and I have a lot to celebrate, my love. This will be unforgettable, unlike what I've got here at home. His expression darkened when he noticed Emily standing in the doorway. Without a shred of shame, he shot her a hateful glare. What are you doing there, you disgusting fat slob? Can't you see I'm busy with a real woman? Someone who's a 10? He sneered. Emily stood frozen. The air felt thick, almost suffocating. She didn't speak. Her eyes stayed on him, as if looking past him, beyond the moment. Mark abruptly stood, grabbed her arm, and dragged her closer to the screen. Come here, he ordered, forcing her to face it. Look, this is Jessica. Beautiful, elegant, young. She'll give me children unlike you. You're useless. You can't even move in bed, that's why you can't get pregnant. The words hit her like invisible blows, but she refused to let him see her pain. Her face remained calm, almost detached. Inside, though, something was shifting, cracking, reshaping. He shoved her away and sat back down as if the outburst were nothing. Get out. I don't want you hovering while I talk to Jessica, the future mother of my children. Emily stepped back slowly until she disappeared from view. Mark turned back to the screen, laughing, completely dismissing her existence. Downstairs, her hands trembled as she set the grocery bags on the counter. She walked to the bathroom and locked the door. In the mirror, her reflection stared back, silent, unflinching. No tears, no screaming. Only an eerie calm that spread through her like a slow-burning fuse. In that silence, Emily made a decision. Her mind was no longer chaos. It was focused, cold, precise. Her calm would be her greatest weapon. Mark had just ignited the spark that would destroy him. She wasn't weak. Not anymore. That night, while Mark laughed in his study and dreamed of a future with Jessica, Emily began crafting the first chapter of her plan. She wouldn't confront him directly, not yet. She would dismantle him piece by piece, smiling all the while. Pain, she realized, wasn't her enemy, it was her ally. The next morning, Emily rose before dawn. The house was silent, fragile, like their marriage. As she brewed coffee, she heard Mark's heavy footsteps descending the stairs. Without a word, he opened the fridge, grabbed a bottle of water, and stood with his back to her. Mark always mistook her silence for submission. But this morning it was a weapon. I hope you don't think being quiet means anything, he said coldly. You know you don't matter. You're just here because I don't have time for changes right now. Emily took a sip of coffee and set the cup down carefully. Changes? She asked softly. Mark turned, startled by her calmness. Yes, changes, he said stiffly. This marriage is just a facade I maintain because it's convenient. Don't start imagining it means anything. I have my own plans. And you're just decoration. I understand, Emily replied evenly. He frowned, expecting more. But she turned away and rinsed her cup as if the conversation had never happened. When he left for work, Emily opened her laptop at the dining table. She started small. How to open a bank account without your spouse knowing. After reading several guides, she began digging through their shared accounts, credit cards, and statements. One detail caught her eye: regular transfers to an unknown account labeled personal expenses. The amounts were large, far too large. So that's how you do it, she murmured. A plan was forming, one that would tear him apart from the inside out. But she needed allies. Direct confrontation wasn't an option yet. Cunning was her only advantage. That evening, Mark returned home in an unusually good mood. Emily was reading in the living room when he dropped onto the couch, turning on the TV without a word. "I won't be here for dinner tomorrow," he said casually, not even glancing her way, as if she didn't exist. Emily looked up from her book and watched him with a calm, unreadable face. "Anything important?" she asked, pretending to be interested. "I'm going out with Jessica," he said brazenly, as if trying to get a rise out of her. A cold shiver ran through Emily, but she kept it hidden. "It's her birthday," he added. "I thought I'd take her to that pricey steakhouse downtown, the one you always wanted to try." "How thoughtful of you," Emily murmured, folding back into her book. Mark huffed, irritated that she gave him nothing to react to, and turned his attention to the TV. That night, after he slept, Emily reopened her laptop. Information alone wasn't enough now. She needed legal counsel. She found a firm focused on bitter divorces, and one profile stood out. Helen Pierce, a retired attorney who offered consultations to women enduring emotional abuse. The call was short and focused. Helen's voice mixed sternness with empathy. "First thing, financial security. Can you divert funds into a separate account without him catching on?" she asked. "I've begun," Emily answered. "Good. Now you need proof. Messages, emails, photos, anything that shows infidelity or abuse." "Do you have that?" "I have everything," Emily said, surprising even herself with how certain she sounded. "Then you're closer than you think. And remember, he must never suspect anything until you're ready to move," Helen warned, then hung up. Emily shut the computer and stared at the ceiling in the dark. The house felt heavier than ever. A dangerous thought slid into her mind. Was legal ruin enough? Or did he deserve something that would scar him permanently? A lesson he couldn't forget? At midnight, she smiled for the first time in ages, not from joy, but from conviction. He believed she was disposable. He was about to learn otherwise. She woke early, methodical. Every detail mattered. That day, Mark had told her he wouldn't be home for dinner. An open invitation to someone who now saw opportunity where she had once seen only hurt. From the bathroom doorway, she watched him dress in a shirt she'd once bought him, a bitter irony. Adjusting his watch, he didn't bother to face her. "Don't wait up," he said with contempt. "Work meeting?" Emily asked, feigning indifference. He snorted. "It's Jessica. Her birthday. I'm making it unforgettable. Unlike your mediocre anniversaries." Her hands trembled slightly before she slipped them into her pockets. He left, adding one last barb. "Don't call me." "I need peace, not your whining." The door slammed behind him like a final seal. Emily breathed deeply. Hatred had to be managed. Everything had to stay controlled. After 15 minutes, she took her purse, went to the garage, and followed him at a careful distance through the city. Each red light gave her time to think. Each turn reminded her how little she knew the man she'd married. Mark arrived at an exclusive downtown restaurant and walked in with practiced confidence. Jessica, already seated, wore a red dress that left nothing to the imagination. Emily parked on a side street, then slipped inside to sit at the bar and record. Her hands shook at first, then steadied. She watched Mark present Jessica with a small box, a diamond necklace. From her seat, she couldn't hear everything, but their lips betrayed the exchange. "It's perfect, my love. You're so generous," Jessica mouthed as she leaned in to kiss him. Emily thought of the times Mark had refused money for her medical treatments when they'd tried for a baby. Seeing him spend extravagantly on another woman hardened her. She left the bar for the restroom near their table, and passing by with her head down, caught a snatch of their conversation. "I can't stand that woman much longer," Mark said, talking about Emily as if she were disposable. "Then why don't you just divorce her?" Jessica asked, impatience barely hidden. "Because I don't want to lose a single cent," he replied flatly, kissing Jessica's hand. "Soon everything will be ready, and you'll be the only one in my life." Emily's fists clenched. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a plan to erase her. Her mission shifted from revenge to survival. Back in her car, she let herself cry, tears of contained fury, not sorrow. She started the engine and left with a steady certainty. That would be the last time Mark humiliated her. Back at home, Emily reviewed the footage she had recorded, each frame, each word another fragment of the puzzle she was carefully assembling. That night, she made a list, not just of evidence, but of allies, people who could help ensure his downfall was complete. The woman who had entered that restaurant as a shadow was now a gathering storm. Mark had no idea what he had unleashed. The real battle was about to begin, and Emily had no intention of losing. The next morning, she stood in front of the bathroom mirror, studying her reflection as if seeking answers. Mark would be back soon, and she needed to maintain control. Every gesture, every word had to be perfect. Her plan required more than evidence. It required her to play the naive, submissive wife, the one Mark took for granted. When she heard his car pull into the driveway, she readied herself. She descended the stairs with calm, measured steps, hiding all emotion. She found him in the living room, phone in hand, keys dropped on the table. His shirt was unbuttoned, and the perfume he wore was clearly not hers. Emily swallowed her revulsion and offered a faint smile. "Mark," she said softly, keeping her voice neutral. "I was thinking, this year, I didn't plan anything for my birthday, but my friends organized a little party. I thought maybe we could go together. It might be nice to share something, don't you think?" Mark looked up from his phone, raising an eyebrow as if she were joking. His eyes scanned her, and his sneer of contempt appeared instantly. "You really think I'm going out with you?" he asked, voice dripping mockery. Emily felt her chest tighten, but she remained calm. Mark stood and approached her, speaking as if instructing a child. "Look at yourself, Emily. Have you seen yourself in a mirror? You're a disaster, fat, sloppy. You really think anyone would want to see me in public with you? Going out with you would be like parading with a beached whale. Honestly, it's embarrassing. I don't know how you even managed to leave the house without feeling ridiculous." Each word struck like a blade, yet Emily didn't flinch. Her body had learned to absorb the pain, turning it into something sharper, colder. She let him continue, aware that each insult confirmed the man she shared her life with. Mark returned to the sofa, picking up his phone as if the encounter had ended. Emily remained standing, hands clenched at her sides. Finally, she spoke serene. "I understand." He glanced up briefly, expecting confrontation. Finding none, he ignored her. "Perfect. Then do me a favor. Don't bother me with nonsense like this again." "I have more important things to do," Mark added, texting. Emily left the living room and went upstairs. In her room, she exhaled slowly. His words echoed, not as sorrow, but as a mantra strengthening her resolve. She had played her part flawlessly. Mark, blinded by arrogance, hadn't noticed the storm gathering. Later, while Mark was on the phone in his study, Emily checked her calendar. That day, she had a meeting with her friends. But it wasn't just any meeting. Lucy, her closest ally, had arranged a gathering with women who had faced similar betrayals. Helen, the retired lawyer Emily had contacted, would also be there. At the cafe, Lucy greeted her with a mixture of concern and support. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. Emily nodded firmly. "This isn't just about what he's done to me. It's about what he could keep doing if I don't act." The meeting exceeded her expectations. Helen gave a detailed list of documents Emily needed: bank statements, incriminating messages, and evidence of verbal abuse. But her most important advice lingered in Emily's mind. Mark underestimates you. He manipulates you because he thinks you'll never act. Use that. But don't let him suspect a thing. Men like him don't back down when threatened. Emily returned home, strengthened by their support, but acutely aware that time was slipping. Every day was another chance for Mark to uncover her plans. That night, she reviewed the restaurant footage. Each insult, each derogatory remark was another piece of the puzzle she was assembling. The next day, Mark ignored the birthday conversation entirely, acting as if Emily didn't exist. Paradoxically, this gave her the freedom to advance her strategy. He thought he had defeated her, but the real game was only beginning. Sitting in the dining room, pretending to read, Emily listened to his restless footsteps. He moved up and down the stairs like a caged animal, something rare for him. Closing her book, she rose and headed to the kitchen. From there, she overheard him speaking softly on the phone, words indistinct, but her expression remained serene as she stirred sugar into her tea. Mark appeared in the kitchen, eyes calculating. Emily pretended not to notice, continuing her task. "What are you doing?" Mark asked, crossing his arms. "Making tea," she replied without turning, her voice calm, almost bored. Mark remained quiet for a moment, but his presence filled the kitchen like a looming shadow. "I've noticed you're different lately," he finally said. Emily turned slowly, cradling her cup. "Different in what way?" she asked, feigning innocence. He stepped closer, eyes scanning her as if trying to read her mind. "I don't know. Calmer, quieter, like you're plotting something," he said, a mocking smile tugging at his lips. Emily allowed herself a small, almost imperceptible laugh. "Mark, what could I possibly be plotting?" she said, making a theatrical gesture of disbelief. She moved to the table, sat, and sipped her tea. "I don't know," he continued, narrowing his eyes. "But I know you, Emily. You're so predictable that even the slightest change is impossible not to notice." Setting her cup down, Emily met his gaze, a glint of defiance softened by a timid smile. "I'm not plotting anything," she said. "If I seem calmer, it's because I'm trying to accept everything. Accept how things are between us." She stood slowly, closing the distance between them. "I want you to know that despite everything, I'm still your wife. And even though I know you have Jessica, I love you, Mark. I can't help it. That's why I want to ask. Don't leave her." Mark froze, his expression shifting from surprise to disbelief, then to laughter. "Are you crazy?" he exclaimed, hand to his face. "What the hell are you saying?" Emily held her ground, her voice steady despite a slight quiver. "Every word I said is measured. Every gesture is part of the act. I just want you to be happy. And if Jessica makes you happy, I won't stand in the way. But I want you to remember, I'm still here. I'm your wife. Maybe I can give you what you're looking for." Mark's laughter faltered slightly, replaced by a mix of contempt and amusement. He leaned in, face near hers. "Do you hear yourself? You're pathetic, Emily. A desperate, pitiful slob. You have no idea how ridiculous you look right now." Emily lowered her gaze, letting tears form but not fall. She needed to appear affected but not broken. "I don't care what you think," she said in a trembling voice. "I want you to know that despite everything, I'm still the woman who loved you from the beginning." Mark shook his head bitterly. "The same woman? No, Emily, you're a hollow piñata. And the worst part? You still think you can compete with Jessica, a woman not only beautiful but capable of giving me what you never could. You're a disaster even in bed. If you were anything like her, maybe I wouldn't be looking elsewhere." Emily clenched her fists behind her back, each word a blow she absorbed with deliberate control. This exchange was necessary. "You're right, Mark," she finally said, lifting her gaze. "I can't compete with Jessica. But that doesn't mean I don't want to try." He stared at her, trying to discern if she was serious. Then, shaking his head, he left the kitchen without another word. Emily exhaled when she heard his study door close. Alone, her calm vanished. She leaned on the table, regaining control, her body trembling. Not from fear, but from rage she had learned to tame and wield. Mark was suspicious, but blinded by his own arrogance. He believed she was weak, pathetic, incapable of anything beyond submission. And that belief was exactly what Emily needed him to hold. That night, while he was on the phone in his study, Emily locked herself in the bathroom with her laptop. She reviewed Jessica's intercepted messages and noticed something crucial. Jessica was pressuring Mark to get a divorce, no longer content with being the other woman. This revelation was a seed of doubt planted in Mark's mind, making him both more dangerous and more vulnerable. Time was critical. Every move had to be precise. Emily couldn't afford a single mistake, knowing Mark would crush her instantly if he discovered her plan. Lying beside him that night, feigning sleep, She reflected on her words. Don't leave her, Jessica. Irony twisted her lips. When she was done, Jessica wouldn't want to stay either. Mark, blind to the trap he'd walked into, was already ensnared. The house carried the tension of a coming storm. Mark was more alert than usual, meticulous with words and actions, as if sensing control slipping. Emily noticed his careful observation, the subtle probing questions he dropped, hoping for reassurance. In the kitchen, chopping vegetables with precise, calculated movements, Emily sensed his approach. His footsteps halted at the threshold. She didn't need to turn to know he was watching. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, breaking the silence. Emily shrugged, keeping her tone casual. "Nothing special. Just planning dinner." Mark leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, eyes piercing hers. "I've noticed you've been weird lately," he pressed, trying to provoke her. Calmer, more self-assured. "That's not normal for you," Mark said, his voice sharp. Emily set the knife down on the cutting board and turned to face him, her expression serene, but her eyes held a glint Mark couldn't read. "Mark, does it really surprise you that I'm calm?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. "After everything you've said, everything you've done." "What did you expect? That I'd keep crying? I think I've given you enough of that." Mark let out a bitter laugh, a flicker of discomfort in his gesture. "I don't believe you. You're not as strong as you pretend to be. Not after what you are. What you've become." Emily held his gaze, letting silence speak in her stead. Finally, frustrated, Mark shook his head and left the kitchen. Emily waited until his study door clicked shut before exhaling. She knew she was playing with fire. Every word, every gesture a test of her control. But she also sensed Mark was growing more unpredictable. Her instinct told her time was running out. She needed to accelerate her plan. That night, while Mark slept, Emily opened her laptop and reviewed the dossier she had painstakingly built. Messages, suspicious bank transfers, photographs of Mark with Jessica in public. Something caught her eye. Jessica's recent messages hinted she was losing patience. "If we don't do this soon, I'm not waiting any longer. There's another man interested in me, and I won't waste more time." Emily smiled. Jessica, like Mark, was playing her own game. But this opened a door Emily hadn't anticipated. If Jessica became a threat, she could use it to her advantage. The next morning, Emily decided to act. She stayed close to Mark, keeping him off guard while remaining a step ahead. When he came downstairs, dressed to leave, she greeted him with a smile designed to unsettle him. "Will you be home for dinner tonight?" she asked, setting 2 cups of coffee on the table. Mark stopped, suspicious. "Why do you ask?" Emily busied herself arranging the table. "I just thought we could have dinner together." "It's been a while since we had a quiet evening." Mark let out a dry laugh. "I'm not in the mood for your desperate attempts to play the perfect wife." Emily remained calm, hiding her satisfaction that he continued to underestimate her. "I understand," she said, a tinge of sadness in her voice. "But if you change your mind, I'll be here." Mark said nothing more, grabbed his briefcase, and left. Emily watched his car disappear before dialing the number she had saved as Lucy. Helen, the lawyer guiding her every move. "I found something interesting," Emily said. "Jessica is pressuring Mark to make decisions. That could work in my favor." "That's good," Helen replied, professional but understanding. "But be careful. If he senses he's losing control, he could become aggressive." "I know. I'm ready for anything," Emily said. That afternoon, she left for the restaurant where Mark usually met Jessica. She had discovered they had a reserved table that night. Her plan was risky. Show up unexpectedly, observe their dynamic firsthand. Seated discreetly near a window, wearing a hat and dark glasses, Emily didn't have to wait long. Mark arrived first, followed by Jessica in a dress that left nothing to chance. Emily recorded discreetly, noting their tension. Jessica's gestures were quick, nervous. Mark seemed uncomfortable. "I can't keep waiting, Mark," Jessica said at one point, loud enough for Emily to hear. "If you're not going to leave your wife, tell me now. I don't want to be the other woman anymore." Mark leaned closer, lowering his voice. Emily caught fragments. I can't do it now. Things are complicated. I need time. Jessica crossed her arms, frustrated. You always need time. I'm tired of your excuses. Emily smiled to herself. The tension was her ally. When Mark and Jessica left, Emily stayed a few minutes longer, reviewing the footage. Every piece of the puzzle fit, but the final move was still missing. That night, she returned home to find Mark on the sofa, TV on. Emily walked past him, feigning fatigue. Did you have a good day? He asked without looking up. Normal, as always, she replied, neutral. She went to her room, organized the files on her computer, and knew the confrontation was nearing. Mark thought he had control. He was about to learn how wrong he was. Emily set the dinner table with obsessive precision, choosing their finest china, lighting candles, pouring wine he once enjoyed. Everything was calculated to convey normalcy, even intimacy, a facade of what hadn't existed in years. Mark arrived late, jacket unbuttoned, phone in hand. He didn't glance at the table. Emily greeted him with a smile, masking the tension she carried. I waited for you for dinner, she said warmly. Mark studied her, weighing whether to stay. After a moment, he left his briefcase by the door and walked to the dining room. I hope this isn't another one of your attempts to fix things, he said sarcastically, sitting in the head chair. That would be the last time Mark would humiliate her. Emily served the plates and set a gift-wrapped box in the center of the table. Mark noticed the shiny paper and frowned. What's that? He asked, pointing with disdain. It's a gift for you, Emily said, sitting opposite him, her voice soft but with a glint in her eyes he couldn't place. He tore the wrapping open with equal parts curiosity and contempt. Inside were 2 plane tickets to Cancun, and beneath them a plus-size bikini folded neatly. Mark exploded into laughter, leaning back as if she'd handed him the funniest joke. What is this? He choked out between laughs, holding up the bikini with both hands. Are you seriously telling me you'll wear that? Please tell me you're joking. Emily met his stare, calm despite the heat rising in her face. Yes, I bought it for myself. I thought we could go to Cancun together. Relax, spend time as a couple. He tossed the bikini on the table and leaned forward, elbows on the wood, mockery plain on his face. As a couple? There's no couple here. What are you imagining? This is ridiculous. You really think I'd want to be seen with you? Look at yourself, you're huge. That bikini looks like a circus tent. I don't know whether to laugh or cry. His words stabbed, but Emily kept her composure. She inhaled slowly and answered quietly. What matters isn't the outside, Mark, but the inside. Mark laughed again, louder and crueler, a hollow sound. The inside? Please. The only thing that matters is you have nothing to offer, outside or in. I should sign you up for a gym, Zumba, Pilates. Maybe then someone would love you. I don't love you, Emily. You're an empty piñata stuffed with... He let the insult hang like a blade. Her hands trembled beneath the table, but she clenched them until her knuckles whitened. She could not afford to lose control. Each insult, each humiliation, was another brick in the wall she was building. Mark, without realizing it, was handing her the tools. I understand how you feel, Mark, she finally said, looking at her laced fingers. But I want you to know that despite everything, I still believe in us. He snorted and pushed the box aside as if it were rubbish. Stop believing. There's no us. There's me and there's you. I want nothing to do with you. I'm here because it's convenient. If it weren't so complicated to get rid of you, I would have already done it. Emily held his gaze without replying. In her silence there was a strength he didn't comprehend, something that made him uneasy though he'd never admit it. He stood and left the dining room, leaving her with the remains of dinner. When she was sure he was occupied on his phone, Emily picked up the bikini and the tickets, carried them upstairs, and tucked them into her closet, not as trophies of shame but as evidence of who he truly was. That night, while he slept, she reviewed the footage from the small camera she'd hidden in the dining room. Every insult, every sneer was recorded. Watching the video, sadness and resolve swelled together in her chest. She knew the end was near, but she also knew she had to hold on a little longer. Every careful step brought her closer to victory. The next morning, Mark acted as if nothing had happened. Emily watched him knot his tie in the mirror, marveling at his blindness. He believed he'd broken her. He didn't know the woman he'd flattened had been reborn, stronger and far more dangerous than he imagined. Mark's routine was predictable, and Emily had used those patterns to her advantage. Morning departures, evening returns, a hidden life he thought no one knew about. She had spent weeks watching, collecting every slip. Now her plan was as solid as a wall built from truth. But time was working against her. Mark had grown sharper, more guarded, as though sensing something amiss. That morning he left early as usual. Emily waited until the car faded down the street before opening the drawer where she kept her laptop and a folder of documents. She reviewed everything: financial records proving embezzlement from their joint accounts, photographs of Mark with Jessica, an audio in which he admitted he resisted divorce because it would cost him too much. She dialed Helen's number. The lawyer answered at once. "How are things going?" Helen asked, her professional tone threaded with empathy. "I have almost everything ready," Emily said, trying to steady the edge of anxiety in her voice. "But he's getting suspicious. I see it in the way he looks at me, the questions he asks. I need to make sure he can't retaliate." Helen paused. "The moment you confront Mark will be crucial. If he feels he's losing control, he could react unpredictably. Do you have a safe place to go if it gets complicated?" "Yes, I've arranged it. I just want everything to be perfect before I make the final move." "I trust you, Emily. You're doing this right. Don't give him any sign you're prepared. Stay calm, even if he provokes you." Emily closed her eyes for a beat, breathing slow. Helen was right. Mark must never suspect that his world was about to collapse. Later, Emily went to Mark's office, an unusual step for her, but this time she had a purpose. At the reception desk, the woman looked up surprised. "Mrs. Miller, what can I help you with?" she asked, forcing a tense smile. Emily's plan was unfolding perfectly. She had feigned curiosity and concern at the office, uncovering the prenup that would have stripped her of everything. And now she was using Mark's arrogance against him. Sitting at the dining room table that morning, coffee in hand, she played her part as the quiet, reflective wife, carefully measuring every word and gesture. "Mark, I need to talk to you," she said softly as he appeared, hair tousled and face marked by sleep. He raised an eyebrow, bored. "What is it now, Emily? Another one of your useless complaints?" Ignoring his tone, she leaned slightly forward. "I've been thinking, maybe I need some time for myself. I feel like I've forgotten who I am, what I want. A trip would help me clear my head. Maybe when I come back, everything will be different." Mark laughed, leaning back, contempt dripping from every word. "Do you really think I care? Go wherever you want. Better yet, stay there. That way I have space for Jessica, my true love." Emily remained composed, having expected his reaction. "I figured," she said quietly, maintaining neutrality. "But I thought you could at least pretend to care." He shook his head, smiling cruelly. "Emily, how many times? There's nothing between you and me. You take up space. Leave and I won't miss you. Jessica gives me everything I need. You? Nothing." Emily looked away, letting a flicker of hurt show while her internal resolve sharpened. Rage and determination coiled inside her, a weapon waiting to strike. "Thanks for being honest, Mark," she said at last, rising from the table. "I'll be leaving in a few days. I hope you enjoy your time alone." Mark didn't respond. He picked up his phone and walked out. Emily watched him leave, her resolve hardening. No remorse, no guilt, just the arrogance she could exploit. She spent the day packing, not for the trip Mark believed she was taking, but for a nearby hotel. From there, she could monitor him without arousing suspicion. With her absence, she knew Mark would act carelessly, giving her the perfect opportunity to gather the final pieces of evidence. That evening, dinner was silent. Emily observed him carefully. He seemed relaxed, satisfied, convinced everything was under control. Finally, she broke the quiet. "I've booked my flight for this Friday." Mark looked up from his plate, smirking. "Perfect. The sooner you leave, the better for me." "Have you told anyone else about your great escape?" she asked, her tone light. Just Lucy, he said, indifferent. She's happy I'm taking some time for myself. Emily nodded politely, concealing the thrill behind her calm exterior. Every step had been executed perfectly. Every move Mark made brought him closer to the trap she had meticulously set. The game was approaching its climax, and Emily was ready. Emily had transformed completely, not just in body, but in spirit and mind. Every insult, every humiliation Mark had inflicted had been fuel for her rebirth. Months of careful planning, self-improvement, and strategic observation had turned her into a force he no longer recognized. The hotel surveillance, the diverted funds, the meticulous gathering of evidence, all pieces of a puzzle that had been silently taking shape while he believed she was gone. Arriving at the wedding in a striking red dress, Emily immediately commanded attention. The whispers, the astonished glances, and Mark's stunned expression all confirmed her calculated impact. Jessica's discomfort only heightened Emily's quiet satisfaction. She had entered the room as the woman Mark had underestimated, and she now radiated confidence and control. Mark approached her, trying to regain composure, but Emily held the upper hand. "Attending a friend's wedding," she replied calmly, mirroring his attempt at casualness. When he pressed further, demanding to know her intentions, Emily closed the gap slightly, her eyes sharp and unwavering. "I just wanted to remind you, Mark," she said. "I am not the woman you left behind. When this is over, when the consequences of your choices arrive, there will be nothing you can do to stop me." Mark stepped back, the certainty in her words hitting him like a blow. "You have nothing on me," he stammered, but for the first time his voice wavered. Emily's smile wasn't cruel. It was the calm assurance of someone who knew the board was finally tilted in her favor. Without another word, she walked away, leaving Mark stunned, confused, and for the first time, afraid. The game had changed. Mark's arrogance and control were illusions, and Emily, reborn and unstoppable, had become the player he never saw coming. The storm had arrived, and she was ready to unleash it. Emily had not just returned. She had returned as a force Mark could no longer ignore. Her months of transformation, planning, and silent observation had culminated in this moment, and every detail of her comeback was calculated to assert dominance. Mark's text that morning, "We need to talk now," was a crack in his armor, and she savored it, waiting until the time she had set to assert control. When he arrived at the house, the atmosphere was deliberate. Candles, wine, a calm Emily seated as though she owned the room. His anger flared immediately, but she met it with icy composure. Then came the evidence, the dossier, the recordings, the proof of his manipulation, embezzlement, and attempts to cheat her out of everything. Each paper, each playback, chipped away at his confidence, leaving him exposed, vulnerable, and finally cornered. Mark's feigned arrogance collapsed under the weight of her meticulous preparation. When he asked, almost defeated, "What do you want?" Emily's response was clear, unwavering: the divorce and her fair share. She left him with a week to decide, her final words delivering a sharp sting of warning about Jessica and his fragile ego. The aftermath was total. Emily secured half of Mark's wealth and dismantled his reputation. Jobs lost, friendships dissolved, and even Jessica's loyalty evaporated as Mark became a shell of the man who had once ruled his world. When Jessica confronted him, her mockery and disdain mirrored the consequences of his arrogance. He had nothing left to offer. Emily's victory was complete, not through rage, but through strategy, patience, and self-reinvention. Mark's control was gone, his power stripped, and Emily stood triumphant, proving that resilience, intelligence, and quiet determination could topple even the most confident of manipulators. If you want, I can also create a spicy, high CTR title CU for this entire story that will instantly grab attention. Do you want me to do that next? Mark, let's be clear, Jessica said, her tone icy and unapologetic. I was with you because you gave me a comfortable life, expensive restaurants, gifts, trips. Now you have nothing. What do you expect me to do? Live in this hole and support you while you try to rebuild? No thanks. I'm not built for that. Mark stared at her, stunned. He had sacrificed everything for Jessica, and now she was leaving him without an ounce of remorse. You were with me for money? He asked, disbelief trembling in his voice. Jessica stood, smoothing her dress with practiced grace. Mark, sweetheart, I was with you for the life you gave me. Now that you can't offer that anymore, you're useless to me. It's that simple. With those final words, she walked out, leaving Mark alone in the ruins of his own choices. While his world fell apart, Emily's flourished. With the settlement from the divorce, she opened the floral design studio she had always dreamed of. A bright, elegant shop that soon became one of the city's most sought-after boutiques. But her greatest triumph wasn't the business or the financial stability. It was Valentina, the 6-month-old baby girl she adopted. The child's laughter filled her home with a joy Emily had never known. Once mocked for her supposed inability to be a mother, she now embodied strength, independence, and love on her own terms. One sunny afternoon, as Emily played with Valentina in the garden, she heard a car pull up outside. Turning toward the gate, she froze. Mark. His clothes were wrinkled, his hair disheveled, his once arrogant eyes filled with desperation. Emily opened the door, holding Valentina in her arms, her expression unreadable. What are you doing here, Mark? She asked quietly. Please, Emily, he began, voice trembling. I need to talk to you. Just a few minutes. She let him in but didn't invite him to sit. Mark's words spilled out in a rush. Regret, pleas, and broken apologies. I made a mistake. I was an idiot. I should never have treated you that way. You were the best thing I had. Jessica left me and now I'm alone. Please, Emily, give me another chance. She studied him in silence, then said coldly, Now I'm the best thing you had? Before I was a piñata, remember? A disgusting wail. And now I'm your love? Mark dropped to his knees, tears streaming down his face. Please, I'm being sincere. I'll do anything to make it right. Emily gave a small, bitter laugh. He who laughs last, laughs best, Mark. There's a God who sees everything. And maybe this is his way of balancing things. As he reached for her, she stepped back, cradling Valentina protectively. I don't need your apology. I have no room for you in my life anymore. I'm happy now. Something you tried to take from me for years. But you were wrong. I'm stronger than you ever believed. Mark lowered his head, broken. Emily opened the door, her voice calm but final. Go, Mark. This is the end for you and me. Learn to live with your choices, just as I learned to live with mine. He left without another word. When he turned back, he saw Emily close the door firmly behind her. That sound, final and resolute, marked the true end of their story. Inside, Emily looked down at Valentina, who smiled up at her, innocent and full of life. In that moment, Emily knew she had finally won, not through revenge, but through peace. Her life was now her own, completely hers to live as she had always deserved.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.